Fix this. Hey, fixing that. There we go. We're live. Great. So, we're going to talk about tolerance for the toxic stuff that goes on and how a lot of people have a tolerance for narcissistic manipulation and the behavior that they give you, right? And how that tolerance can make it so it's difficult to step out. It's more than just trauma bonds sometimes, you guys. We simplify it by calling it trauma bonding. And yes, that's a complex thing in itself, but it's more than that. There's oftentimes reasons why it's almost like we're numb to what happens, or we can take emotional attacks and emotional manipulations and the psychological games that people play with us, and almost like it affects you, but you're able to tolerate it. It's like it's not as bad as the other thing, which would be stepping away from the situation, right? So let's talk about that and more. So my name's Lise Colucci, and I'm here to help you understand, recover from, and transform your life after being in relationships with narcissistic people or being raised by toxic people. And if you need coaching, group coaching, or peer support, please check out the information in the main description of every video. Hit the thumbs up, hit subscribe, share this stuff so that the information gets out there and we get people over here to join us on these live streams. So yeah, why do you tolerate it? Why is it not so bad the first, second, third time you are gaslit? Why that you step away from it? Why? What is it for us? Okay, let's forget them for a second. We know what they do. We know that the narcissist manipulates. We know that they gaslight. We know they project. We know they devalue. They love bomb. They create this. Well, let's start there. Okay, so they create this world of unknown like things happening. So one minute they're nice, the next minute they're not. The intermittency of it all, the question of it all, they create this world of confusion, right? And we're a little bit lost in it. So there's that. That's one reason we tolerate it, because we think that we can fix it. We think that there's a way to fix it. But deeper than that, there's the fact that a lot of people grow up in situations where it's all they've known. All they've known is the conflicted, confusing state of themselves being to blame, themselves being told they're wrong, themselves being told they're not enough, or being just somehow undermined their worth, right, as a person, so that they can't trust themselves. They always are looking to the outside for validation. You might always be seeking the approval of other people. If you have a high level of codependency, then you're seeking the approval and the validation of those around you, including the narcissistic people, and especially the narcissistic people, because they're the hardest ones to win over. Always seeking that approval of others is going to make it so you tolerate a lot just to be okay. Because, of course, you're taking the blame and the burden for other people. But there's a lot more to it. So there's a whole big picture going on out there. Okay. Emotional unkindnesses, emotional manipulations, gaslighting, it's all normalized in television, in movies, in the media, in advertising, in the way we're taught, the way we're raised. We're not raised to speak from our sense of self and have that be okay with anyone else. We're raised to have this transactional sort of thing going on from the greater structure of society very often, right? And so yeah, it's normalized. It's normalized to, oh, he's just being a jerk. Guys are just jerks, right? Or oh, that's how women are, and or that's how people are together. Everyone wants their way, whatever. It's normalized, and it's not looked at like, wait a minute, no, that isn't okay, and that isn't how people should be speaking to one another. So that's one thing. It's what we've learned. Okay. There's a fear of letting go, a fear of walking away from everything you've already known, from the normal, from what you are used to, especially if you have children together or you're with a narcissistic person for a long time. the fear of never finding someone else, the fear of it never being as good as this. This is the fear they plant in you, right? That it's never going to be as good as this. This is as good as it gets. This is, no one's ever going to love you the way I love you. And if you think about that one, you're like, yeah, I hope not. Right. But so, yeah, there's that. There's the fact that this relationship has destroyed your self-esteem, or you were raised in a situation where you never were given an opportunity to have self-esteem. And that can make it feel impossible to step away from. It can make it feel impossible to get a fresh start or to start new because you've got a very low level of self-esteem carrying you along, and then you tolerate the scraps of attention that a narcissist will give you. It's sad, you guys. It's so much of healing from and keeping toxic people out of your life comes down to working on oneself to discover what it is, where the gaps are, what the things are that pulls us back to those situations are, so that we can learn to heal them and transcend them or rise above them, whatever you want to say, so that it's not, the cycle doesn't continue. Otherwise, we're going to keep going back to the same thing we're always doing, right? And repeating and repeating. So, remember that the love bombing that comes after a devaluing period of time, even if it's just that person isn't angry with you, this is the trauma bonding part, right? That it's affecting your brain chemistry. And so it changes your tolerance because when the negative starts, you're instantly on the search for the positive, and your brain gets used to that. And so we have to understand that we're in this chemical soup in our head that's going on when we have these kinds of relationships, and that the only way away is to step away, and that is creating a sort of tolerance for the way you're being treated. I'm not saying you tolerate it, like, go ahead, do the mean things. Yeah, I'm not saying that. Tolerance meaning your threshold, right? Your ability to take, your ability to withstand, not tolerate as in go ahead and do it. Okay, most people don't say go ahead and do it. They're fighting it tooth and nail and trying their very best to make things better. So, okay, sometimes it's fear of leaving, like actual legitimate fear of leaving, that makes it so it's like, well, if I leave, they're going to stalk me. If I leave, this is going to happen. If I leave, that's going to happen. And if that's the case, get yourself to some domestic violence shelter to at least talk it through, or domestic violence center, whatever, to talk it through, safety plans for your area, for yourself, for you personally, to help you extract yourselves from the situation. That's a little different than a tolerance, meaning that you're not, well, no, it really isn't, because that fear can lock into the fight flight. And then it's like, I can withstand this. It's better than it's better than the other way, right? It's better than the fear I'll fear if I'm alone and away from them because being scared. So that's really scary and that's really hard. And like I said, get some help if you're in that position. What else do I want to say here? I'm probably going to keep this pretty short. I had some stuff written down really quickly and I'm looking for it. I don't know. It's an interesting thing when you are looking at yourself after you've been with toxic people, or if you're still in it trying to leave and you're like, why can't I get out? Why can't I let them go? Why would I tolerate that? Why would I allow that? Well, I wouldn't. But I wouldn't allow it, but then I'd go back to it. What does that mean? How come that's happening? It's super confusing to people when they're in that place. And sometimes the confusion of it itself is the trap that keeps you in. You're thinking too much with your head. You're trying to reason through something that's unreasonable with your mind. And this is an action thing of taking back self and taking accountability for self and responsibility for self, so that you do not have these types of relationships in your life directly if you can help it, right? It's not something you're going to think about having responsibility for, and it'll just magically go away. And I think we get locked in our heads because we spend so much time trying to understand these people, trying to understand the whys, and we've spent so much time in pain and emotional hurt from toxic people that we're always thinking about our pain and our hurt and wanting to make it better, if only having a bit of hope. That's one reason we tolerate having some, um, some kind of just one more try, just one more. If they do one more thing, there's another reason people tolerate. They're waiting for the last straw. They're waiting for the one thing to make it bad, that like the breaking point, right? Or their personal what's the word? What's that word people use when they leave another person because it's a anyway, whatever. You know what I'm saying? When they're like, yeah, no, well, there is no one thing because you get to that one thing and then the tolerance comes because you're so used to it and you go right into the gaslighting argument and engaging with the narcissist. So your brain chemistry is getting all riled up and you're numbing up and you're disassociating and you're checking out from the reality that you need to leave the situation, and you're dumping in to the dynamic with the narcissistic person, and you're just fueling them with supply and they are just taking and taking, and then you're tired, and then you just feel defeated, and then the cycle continues, right? So I think the way out is recognizing for yourself, what is it and where is it that you're finding a place to that you could lower your tolerance and let it be more uncomfortable. Let it become so uncomfortable that you're not understanding why you're there, that you're not, it doesn't make any sense, so that you can get yourself out. This is one way to like bypass the trauma bonded feelings, is to allow yourself to feel it. The emotional, I mean, I don't want you to feel it. I don't want you to have to feel it. I want you to just see it and leave, right? And see it and lower the contact, whatever it is you need to do for yourself to take care of yourself. But sometimes people get so good at managing. Here's another reason people build tolerance for the emotional manipulation, is they start Grayrocking really, really well for way too long. And they become disassociated, checked out, indifferent within the relationship. They don't leave it and become that way. They stay in it and become that way. And that is super difficult, because if you're in a relationship and you are indifferent and know how to gray rock really well, it becomes part of the pattern of the relationship, becomes part of the pattern of how you interact. Well, you're kind of stuck in it, because it is now become a tolerance point, right? It's become a raised tolerance for the crap that the person throws at you. And so then you're sort of like, whatever, I can tolerate, I can take it. And yeah, not okay, because how do you get out then? So remembering that things like gray rocks are tools to help you not react, to help you stay inside yourself and your experience of what's going on, and to not let the gaslighting and the confusion affect you up here, so that you can get away from the situation easier. If you can't get away from it, become detached, but then also have a life outside of it. So hopefully it's not someone you're living with, right? So that you can diffuse arguments with them if you choose to stay, but it is not to help you. It's not to, you got to be careful that it doesn't completely take over the functioning here, or else I've talked to a lot of people who have gray rocked a lot of years and have a lot of problems from it, because they are so checked out from their own feelings now that they're like, "Uh-oh, I'm in a fog all the time," right? So, and so, yeah, that tolerant, and they can't get rid of the person because they're like, well, there they are. It's like just tolerating it. So yeah, it's checking where you personally have things you are not looking at, don't want to look at, don't want to talk about, don't want to admit. A lot of people build their tolerance for the manipulation by hiding it from other people, by hiding the fact that that's what's going on to everyone, and including themselves. And not wanting to look at it means you're stuck with it on the inside all by yourself without any validation. And so you're going to start questioning your reality, because otherwise you'd have to leave, right? Like, to admit it to yourself and to uh, accept that that's what's going on and that it is not going to change and that it's been going on, and, means that you are, um, you're trapped in that because of that cycle, right? So once you see it, though, once you start seeing the places that you have built tolerance in your psyche, right, for this emotional manipulation, that's when you can start asking questions. Is this what I want? Do I want something else? Okay, yes, I understand. I feel like I am worthless, and I can see that I feel like I'm worthless because of the way I've been treated. And so maybe I should reach out for some help and work on that worthlessness part and see what happens. See what happens when I lower my tolerance for the emotional manipulation. Being really careful that you're not lowering your tolerance so much you get reactive, because that can happen. Reactive abuse can happen in that situation where you start going back at them, and then that's explosive, right? So being careful that you're doing this with some awareness of yourself and what's happening, and recognizing you don't want to be pushed past a certain threshold where you're doing things you don't want to do. That's another thing. We get there and then we feel guilty, so it creates a tolerance, because when you're in reactive abuse with a narcissistic person, you're participating, right? Back and forth, back and forth. And then you feel bad because you have a conscious and have empathy, and so then that feeling bad means you're putting empathy on the other person for what you did to them, which means you're part of the problem, which means there's something to fix because of you, which creates more tolerance. So see, it's going to be individual, and it's going to be like, so what is it for you? What is it in your life that has made this feeling of tolerance? And remember, I'm not saying you take it and you're like, it's okay. I'm saying the feeling of it being tolerable to you. Otherwise you'd be out. So what is it that created that, or is creating that for you? And how can you work on lowering that tolerance so that you can see the bigger picture of what's going on, get the help you need, and get yourself to safety, emotional safety, freedom, and healing from this type of relationship. So I'll leave you with that question, and I will be back next week. We'll have some live streams and some videos, and I will talk to you guys next time. Take care. Bye-bye.